So I've been commissioned by my friend Claire to make a steel rose for her girlfriend Tash. Now honestly, it's been a while since I've made a steel rose, so I've got to try and do better than my first attempt. Let's make a steel rose! Jump cut! So annoyingly, I just got to the end of editing this little montage, and I was showing it to my partner, and she pointed out that it sounds like 80s porn music. Now, obviously, I'm far too young and innocent to remember 80s porn. But yeah, you might want to be careful where you watch this, because you might get some strange looks. Because annoyingly, she's right. Bow chicka wow wow. So, here is the stem, and here is where we are up to with it. It's pretty much done. What I've done is I've left a thinning on the end here. The idea... oh, that's still hot. The idea is I'll tap and die that, and I'll put some bolts on in order to fit the petal, sorry. I have noticed one imperfection, which is in this leaf just here. If it'll focus, the actual leaf itself has cracked. Just on that far edge. In and of itself, not the end of the world. I can either just chop it off and make do with just having like a sort of pointed branch coming off, if you like. The other option I've got, which is what I'm going to try and do, is I might just try and tack a small weld on it. It is ridiculously thin, so there's a very good chance it will just blow it straight through, but might as well give it a try. Why not? It's not going to do any harm. If the worst I'm going to do is chop it off anyway. Otherwise, I think that looks pretty good so far. So what I've got here is some absolutely tiny 1.6mm general welding electrodes. This is the normal size electrode I use, and this is what I will be using. Now, I've used these before in order to fix the tiny little screw box, which also was about 1mm to 2mm thick. And by doing it very carefully and very slowly, I could get away with it. So if I try the same thing with this, I'm going to preheat the electrode on the worktop so that it's easy to get started and will hopefully reduce the risk of blowing a hole in that. I'm also going to turn my ampage way down to probably about 30 amps, and I'm going to try welding with that. Let's give this a try. Like I say, no guarantees this is going to work. I really need to finish this table. Yeah, if you haven't seen this yet, this is the new welding bench I've been building. As of yet, it is unfinished. As you can see, it doesn't secure yet, but this will be in a future video. Without any further ado, let's give it this test weld here. Right, first things first, let's heat up the electrode. So that's on 35 amps at the moment. As you can see, that's blowing a hole straight through it. So, unfortunately, probably a no-go. But what I might be able to do is actually weld out the chunk with the crack on and possibly turn it into a bit of a feature, make it look like an eaten leaf. I don't know if I'm going to get away with that. Let's give it a try. Let's try on 17 amps. Surprisingly, I actually kind of like that. And that may be enough to get rid of the weak spot. Not what I planned, but we might be able to make something out of that. Right, the next step is to try and grind out some of the stress concentrations. For example, everywhere you see where I cut the steel here and here, you've got like miniature cracks from just where the material has basically been forced to break. So I need to grind those out, and I need to just do a general tidy up of the whole thing, I think. I'll also shape the leaves a little bit better and make them look a little bit more organic. Now, unlike some people when they make leaves and steel flowers and things like that, I like to leave mine asymmetrical. Like you see here, I could shape this so it's absolutely perfectly in line, but I actually prefer it that it doesn't look perfect. It's very rare that in nature you see perfect symmetry, so yeah, for the sake of an actual organic feel, I'm going to leave it imperfect. That's my excuse anyway, and you can't prove otherwise. I couldn't fully get into this with the belt grinder, so now I'm going to use my rotary tool to see if I can get that last little bit. Well, my mini rotary tool ended up being underpowered, and my die grinder is too big and doesn't fit in the gap. So we're having to do it the old school way and swapping to files. This is going to take a while, but as you can see, I'm almost there. It's always important to get these stress concentrations out. You see that little gap there, because otherwise that is just a structural weakness in this sculpture. Well, it took a while, but yeah, we got there. That's both of them now done. Came out okay. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to die the end here, and then once I've got a thread on here, I'm going to insert a bolt, or rather insert this through the bolt, and that will act as a backstop for the petals when I slide them over the top. What I'll do then is I'll also bolt on from the top above, and we'll sandwich the petals between the two, and that should create a pretty nice, stable structure. So unlike the last time I made a rose, I'm not going to spend so long being all finicky about cutting out the exact shape. All I'm going to do, I'm going to sketch out some circles, I'm going to cut them out, and then I'm going to trim them into shape. I don't know why the first time I did this I didn't do it that way, as it's much easier and a lot less time consuming, but I guess I wanted to get everything perfect the first time I'd ever done it. Time to deploy flower pots. Well, that's one way of mounting it. I bought this shear quite recently, and I haven't yet had a chance to use it, but I do plan on doing a restoration on it at some point, because it's, I mean, it works fine, but it's a bit knackered and a bit rusty. Right, well that's got all the pieces cut out. Now you might be thinking you wanted to give this a try, but I haven't got a bandsaw, or I haven't got a metal cutting shear. If you look at my YouTube video, I've got a video where I made a steel rose and all I used was tin snips. It took a really long time, but it is possible. You've got no excuse. I will warn you, however, that was an absolutely rubbish video back before I had any idea how to edit, so watch at your own peril. Little safety tip for you, before you cut into these, just bear in mind that as a drill bit starts to punch through a piece of steel, it likes to catch, and it'll turn these into little spinning Death Stars. So either make sure you're wearing gloves, or you've got some way of clamping it down. For me, these welding gloves are thick enough. There we go. Right, that's got all the petals and the collet done. The next thing we need to do is texture them. So what we're going to use is my welding chipping hammer, the flat side, and a piece of log on its end, and we're basically just going to stipple the end of the flower petals just to give them some texture and make them look a bit more organic and natural. There you go, there's one all done, and when you flip it over you get this nice petal texture showing through on the other side. So that'll be the outside of the flower with these folded in. Right, 4 more to go. So here is how we're shaping up so far. We are starting to resemble a flower. Annoyingly, I've realised I've run out of M5 nuts, so I can't actually connect this on yet. So I've got to run to the shop and get some more, but yeah, like I say, we're starting to resemble a flower, and more importantly, it balances, which is what I was concerned about when I was making the frame. All going swimmingly so far. I will see you in a bit after I've gone and got some nuts. There we go, we're back from the shop. We now have M5 bolts, so let's put one in place and then let's start on mucking around with these petals. I really hope I got the right ones. Perfect, so that'll lock in place there. That gives these a good butt, and then we just need to put another one over the top. Get my line. There we go. There we go. Just got to tighten that a little bit more. So here's the thing, we've got them all now folded in on each other. What I'm now doing is I'm going around them and I'm adding in imperfections to make it look more organic and more realistic, more rose-like, rather than a rose made of steel. So we're just going in, getting the tips and just bending them out, bending them in, making them all higgledy-piggledy, making them look like a real rose does. I reckon one last little fold just here. Let's bend that outwards slightly. There. I think I'm pretty happy with that. Looks about right. Well, we're in the home straight now. Last little thing I need to do is just some cleanup work. So I'll get my steel wire brush and I'll just go over the head, over the frame, give it a bit of a highlight and a bit of a sheen. But yeah, otherwise we are pretty much done. We're done. Happy birthday, Tash!